Welcome to the SkullKing Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrude.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrude, and with me is my brother Justin.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got an exciting show for you tonight. We are going to go over the Monday Night Football game, kind of give a little bit of a here and there, kind of our thoughts of what happened and transpired in this game. We thought that FitzMagic may turn into FitzTragic.
Do you believe in magic?
And what do you know? He does something that no one's ever done before. So we're also going to take a look at some of the headlines. There's some injury news, some new starters coming in. After that, we're going to go through the waiver wire madness and then close it out. So why don't we go ahead, get started real quick. Let's do a quick review of the Monday Night Football game. Pittsburgh Steelers have a phenomenal first half, 30 points in the first half, up 30-10. And they tried so hard to lose it.
Yeah, they put up a goose egg in the second half, and I don't want to say it wasn't without trying. I mean, they could move the ball till about the 40-yard line, but that was about it. And most of it was coming off of these short dink routes to Juju Smith-Schuster, which is what gave him a huge day, even though he didn't find the end zone. But yeah, they really tried to lose it, and even Tampa Bay tried not to win with all of their penalties, and Deshaun Jackson's punt return gets called back. At one point, I don't think either team was trying to win. Still simultaneously beating the spread and scoring tons of points.
Well, what was it? The Buccaneers had Deshaun Watson's touchdown on the punt return get called back. And then after they give up the ball back to the Steelers punt to get it down, like it rolls out of bounds at the 1 yard line.
It's a penalty.
And then there's a penalty for, what was it, for like illegal motion or something, which brought it back. And there was
they punted it through the end zone.
No. There was that 5-yard penalty, so they had to come back and repunt it. And then on top of that, Darius Hayward-Bay was going off on a ref or something and gets a 15-yard personal foul. So they brought it back 20 yards and had to repunt it. And so, I mean, yeah, it was
It could have been worse out of that 15-yard penalty. Like, it could have been a shanked punt.
Yeah.
But the other thing about this game that has nothing to do with fantasy football is, good Lord, what is a defense to do to a quarterback? Like, are they just supposed to run up and Stevenson blow in their ear to make them fall over? I don't know what a defense is supposed to do. There's already so many memes and videos that are flying around of what you're supposed to do to a quarterback. I saw one of a guy who just kind of like walks up, gingerly picks up his girlfriend and lays her down and then puts a pillow behind her head and then kisses her on the forehead.
And then someone still throws a banana peel as a flag.
Yes.
Okay,
that's what that was. I didn't catch what I was like.
Yeah, someone threw a banana peel as if it was still a flag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can actually download this. So for people listening to the podcast, I'm actually going to see if I can download that, and I'll put it right behind this little comment here. So so you can kind of see what our thoughts are.
Find it really quickly.
It's whether or not I can actually download it to put it into the video and everything. So if you're watching the video, you'll be able to see it.
Now, in my spare time, I ref flag football, and I know I'm a little bit of a rules junkie for the game, but the letter of the law, if you will, of the rules has gotten so quarterback friendly that I don't know what a defense is supposed to do. We had a guy get hurt.
Yeah, the defensive end from Miami.
Avoiding landing on top of a quarterback.
Towards ACL out for the season.
And then tonight, we've got a guy who kind of flops and kind of lays with his hands up while he's on the ground. He's a defensive lineman. And then Fitzpatrick kind of falls over him, and that was a penalty. So I don't know what anyone's supposed to do. I wish that they would get it under control because there were 15-yard penalties. I think there were 7 roughing the passer penalties tonight. It was horrible.
All right. Well, getting back to the fantasy stats for this game, Ben Roethlisberger, 30 of 38, 353 and 3 TDs. I want to say he had at least 1 or 2 interceptions. I doesn't have that list.
One interception.
One interception. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 30 completions on 50 attempts, 411 yards and 3 TDs for the 3rd consecutive game.
NFL history.
I mean, what he is doing is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, to me, 2 of those interceptions are not his fault. Obviously, the pick 6 is his fault because he overthrew Jaquiz Rodgers, ends up right in a defender's hands, and he only had to walk gingerly 10 yards into the end zone for a touchdown. But the slant route over the middle where Evans more or less lazily runs a route.
He cuts off the route, tries to settle in his zone on play action.
Yeah, and that goes. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but that play right there kind of describes my feelings towards Evans since he's played in. If you've listened to us for any amount of time, we're not too keen on Evans'
route running ability. /
100% being there all the time. He kind of chooses when he wants to play, and that's a perfect example of him kind of leaving his quarterback out to dry. Now, granted, it was a miscommunication between the two, but Evans, even looking at the route from the get-go, he curves the thing off. He's not really getting separation by creating a hard line. And then the other interception is just a tip at the line that then hits off the guy's helmet and flies in the air. Like, what do you expect him to do? So, for those of you who at the beginning of the second half thought, oh, well, Fitzpatrick has finally become Fitztragic again, then you watch second half, he pulls it out, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, but he does have a very good game.
Yeah, they have a lot of explosiveness on that offense. I mean, you look at Evans, 6 catches, 137 yards and a TD. Chris Godwin is silently having a very good season. We will get to him again later.
Yes. And even Cameron Brate got involved this week.
Oh, shut up.
Hey, that's a good thing. We like Cameron Brate on this show.
We like Cameron Brate, but the fact that, you'd think the Harvard to Harvard connection would have been better than it's been so far.
Yes.
So, but yeah, Chris Godwin had a great game. We talked about Juju Smith-Schuster, 9 catches, 116 yards, but didn't get in the end zone. Vance McDonald, first game back, 4 receptions, 112 yards and a TD. He is the tight end to own if you're going to own a tight end in Pittsburgh. He's the one.
We'll talk about that later as well.
So, all right. So that's it for the Monday night game. Let's go ahead and get into the headlines.
Today's headlines.
All right. Starting with Le'Veon Bell. Let's just get this out of the way. The Steelers have received a few inquiries from teams looking to trade for the franchise running back, and they have not shot those down as they once did. A trade would be very complicated, but not impossible. Expect this to heat up as the trade deadline gets closer. The 2 teams that I've heard most likely to try because they have the available cap space and need a running back are the Jets and the Colts.
Yeah, the only one that I've heard that's had any quote-unquote steam is the Jets, which I find interesting because they just signed Crowell. Not that that's that great of a play, but they just spent money on Crowell. This is a rental. They've got 2 quality kind of players. They are in less need of a running back to me than the Colts, unless the Jets' play is to sign Le'Veon Bell long-term and get a solid running back there for Sam Darnold. That's where I see the play more happening, and I think that's going to be a little bit more drawn out If this is a quick trade, if this is a quick thing, I would say it's the Colts. If it's something more of a long-term play and it's a little bit more thought out and the Steelers are looking to get more out of it by waiting, then I would see the Jets being the likely place.
I like the Colts here because it would provide a stable running back for Andrew Luck to help him out, to take pressure off of Andrew Luck as he is still continuing to rehab his shoulder. Plus, they have a whole lot of cap space this year, and they'll have even more next year.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd see them as a good play.
They might want to spend some of that on their line.
They might want to spend some on their defense, too. No sign of Tyrod Taylor at Browns practice today. He has been in concussion protocol, though the team is optimistic he will clear soon. Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield is getting in the work because Hugh Jackson informed the team that he was going to start from now on, and Tyrod will be the backup when he is healthy. Congratulations to Baker Mayfield. We will get to him again later as well.
One thing I want to throw out there, do you think with the Garoppolo injury that there is a effort by the 49ers to go get, say, a Tyrod Taylor or an alternative quarterback now that Garoppolo is out? Or do you think they stick with Bethard, who played last year, knows the system? There's not really a whole lot of trades that happen from the quarterback perspective midseason anyway, but do you think that that's something at play here?
Maybe. They're already – if you look at the quarterbacks that they're trying out right now, it's T.J. Yates, Tom Savage. Basically, all these
guys – they're going cheap is what they're doing.
All these guys that used to back up for the Houston Texans. So,
hey, Fitzpatrick. Jameis Winston comes in starting, say, week 6, and Fitzpatrick played for the Texans. Yeah, I don't believe it either.
All right, Dalvin Cook considers himself day-to-day and is unsure of his Week 4 status against the Rams. Let's not forget that is a Thursday night game, the Rams and the Vikings. So that's something to watch. I would not yet drop Latavius Murray, but I would not be very confident in putting him in your starting lineups unless you absolutely have to.
It's amazing how fast Cook's confidence was in, I'll be ready for Week 4. And then he saw the Rams. I'm like, I think I'm day-to-day.
I might be day-to-day.
Yeah, looking at Sue and Darnold, I'd be day-to-day too.
Jaguars coach Doug Marrone said running backs Leonard Fournette and TJ Yeldon will be day-to-day this week. He's optimistic. Then that moves on to someone else. And he's optimistic about a couple other guys coming back. The New York Jets have reached out to the Steelers about acquiring Le'Veon Bell.
Yep.
Bengals coach Marvin Lewis declined to update A.J. Green's status at his Monday press conference, but I saw earlier A.J. Green said he will be ready.
Yeah, and they're going to need him because Atlanta is going to score a lot of points.
Arizona coach Steve Wilkes has officially announced that quarterback Josh Rosen is going to be the starter, and all the Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson owners rejoiced.
And Ricky Seals-Jones owners, don't forget about him because there's going to be checkdowns to the tight end.
Or to David Johnson.
Or to anybody other than whoever the hell Bradford was throwing to.
The other team. All right. LaShawn McCoy is progressing well in his day-to-day.
Probably not going to play again this week. If they're worried about him long-term, and if you're a McCoy owner, I'm not worried about the legal stuff. I'm worried about them wanting to hold him out and be safe because the Bills proved that they can win, as shocking as it was. And
at an away game,
only 2% of people picked that game, and all of those people live in Buffalo. Or are Buffalo fans, or from Canada, or whatever. But McCoy is not someone that I would look to start this week because I don't think they're going to play him. I think they're going to be a little bit more cautious with him.
Yep. One thing to look at for Thursday night, while it's not offense-related, it is offense-related. Rams cornerback Aqib Talib suffered a high ankle sprain Sunday that will sideline him at least a month. And Rams cornerback Marcus Peters strained his calf and is considered day-to-day. I saw another thing that he could be out 2 to 4 weeks. So with the Vikings going up against them on Thursday night, yes, I understand that line is just absolutely brutal. The defensive line is absolutely brutal for the Rams, and it will just wreak havoc.
Queue up Diggs and Thielen.
Yeah, well, not like you were not going to queue them up anyways.
Well, yeah, but
yeah. So
how angry are the Keenan Allen owners? I'm speaking for myself.
And
who are
myself.
upset that this happened this week and not last week.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Fantasy football.
Kyle Shanahan said that Matt Breida hyperextended his knee, will be questionable this week. So that's something to keep in.
So Alfred Morris
Fine.
stash that I have might finally pay off.
Yep. And it's official. The MRI showed what the 49ers feared. Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL. His season is over. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens with the quarterback situation there in.
Did you see the article? Did you see the article or the news report about Justin Houston basically saying that Garoppolo has only himself to blame for his injury because he already got the yardage. Justin Houston literally, for those who don't know, he's the linebacker from the Chiefs, said that Garoppolo got the yardage he needed, which he did, yet still tried to stay in bounds and take the hit, and that's what caused the injury. If he was smart, he would have just gone out of bounds, taken the yardage that he needed, and protected himself and gotten out of play, gotten out of harm's way. And who knows, with the way the NFL's protecting quarterbacks, could have drawn a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, oh well, whatever. Real quick note on San Francisco. If it is CJ, I mentioned this last night, just want to say it again. It's CJ Beathard, or however you say his name.
Yeah.
Beathard is going to be the quarterback for a little while. Guess who is his tight end at Iowa? George Kittle. So if you can manage to maybe make a trade for him, that's one way to go.
Yes.
All right, so that is it for our headlines. Let's move into our waiver wire madness.
Waiver Wire Madness.
Now tonight, waiver wire madness is actually we're calling it powered by StatRoute. StatRoute gives you instant access to data not found anywhere else. Sign up today at StatRoute.com and experience the new standard of stats delivery. They are a fantasy stats website. They're the new standard for fantasy stats. Any stat, any player, anytime. Go to StatRoute.com to sign up for free. To get a free trial. That's what it is. We at SkullKing, real quick testimony, we love StatRoute.
Yes.
Their stats, the way that they break everything down is simply ridiculous. They break it down from home, away. You can break it down to against different teams, against different defensive coordinators, how players have done from this season in primetime games, so Thursday or Sunday night or Monday night.
Basically, they have just baseballed fantasy football stats.
Basically, they have taken it to the nth degree. So definitely check out StatRoute, StatRoute.com, StatRoute.com.
And they will help you. They will help you win your league.
Yes. All right, so let's start off. Waiver Wire Madness, starting with the quarterbacks. Justin, who are you looking at to pick up this week?
No one. No. Interesting stat for those of you who play on ESPN. I normally use the ownership percentages off of ESPN, but right now there are currently 18 quarterbacks that are owned in 50% or more of ESPN leagues. 18. So you have to go down to quarterback 19 in order to find somebody. So more than likely, you have a quarterback that is better than the two I'm going to mention, and you should go with those two because I'm giving you two for the sake of deeper leagues, 14, 16-plus leagues who still need some options based off of injuries. The first one, Case Keenum, really only streamable because he faces Kansas City. who's given up 34, 44, and 26 points to the quarterback position through the first 3 weeks. Once again, with 18 other quarterbacks owned in 50% of leagues, unless you're the Garoppolo owner and you just lost Garoppolo and you had nobody stashed on your bench, that's a scenario where I see you picking up Case Keenum. That's really the only one. And so my other one, for those of you who are patient enough, Jameis Winston. And once again, let me preface it, patient enough and you don't believe in Fitzpatrick long-term for this season. He's currently owned in 6.7% of leagues, so there's not a lot of you who believe in him already. I was slow, admittedly, to join the FitzMagic train, if you will. But I did start him week 3 because I didn't like Rivers' matchup against the Rams. Worked out for me. But I was also looking to trade Fitzpatrick because I like Rivers and I don't like carrying 2 quarterbacks. So rather than drop him, I've been trying to, quote-unquote, create my own waiver wire by trading him for a better player. But I'm not getting off the Fitzpatrick train quite yet. Once again, we mentioned first player in NFL history to throw for 400-plus yards in 3 straight games. Jameis has been out for the first 3 weeks of the season since the preseason. He's going to have some rust off anyway. So regardless of how Fitzpatrick played in this week 3 game, Fitzpatrick was going to play in week 4. That was my firm belief. What he has done and Winston coming off of suspension, just too much. So I believe that Winston, if you are a doubter in Fitzpatrick and you like Winston and you like carrying 2 quarterbacks, that's where I can see you carrying Winston. Other than that, leave him on waivers because not a lot of people are going to grab him anyway. Once again, this is a desperation play / you're banking against Fitzpatrick. That's really the only situation where I see Jameis Winston as a valuable option.
All right. For me, I've got 2 other completely different names. I'm going off of Yahoo instead of ESPN, but that's,
we do that.
Andy Dalton is owned in 34% of leagues. Andy Dalton this next week is going to be playing in Atlanta against a defense that has now lost both of its starting safeties to an ACL and to an Achilles injury for the season. They have also lost their middle linebacker to an ACL injury for the season. This is a defense that I'm not, I'm not saying that Andy Dalton's going to do the same thing that Drew Brees just did to that defense.
Okay, good.
However, if you're looking for, say you have Cam Newton who's on bye this week, or you have maybe who's another, a Deshaun Watson he's going up against Indianapolis, so you're not going to sit him in that game.
Not yet.
But say you have Carson Wentz and you're just not confident because the Tennessee defense has been playing pretty well. Okay. I think that Dalton could have a very good game against them, especially if AJ Green is healthy. If he's got AJ Green and Tyler Boyd throwing against that defense, I think that he can be a streamable option. 2 TDs, possibly 3, with an interception and about 250 to 300 yards.
Yeah.
Plus, because they don't have Mixon, they're going to be throwing the ball out of the backfield to Giovanni Bernard as well. So, because of that, I think that he is a very viable option to stream this week.
Yeah, he plays Miami in week 5, and then he gets Pittsburgh and Kansas City in 6 and 7. So there's some 2 good matchups later as
shootout
well.
Possibilities.
Yeah, those Pittsburgh's just bleeding points at this point.
And so is Kansas City.
See what I did there?
Yes.
But and then Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's also been giving up a bunch of points. So 4 of the next 5 weeks, there are positive matchups for Andy Dalton.
Yep. Then the other one, I'm going to say it, Baker Mayfield. Owned in 13% of leagues. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying the only reason I'm saying pick up Baker Mayfield is if you are in a 2-quarterback league and you need a third. he is as a bye week to kind of hold on to for bye weeks, or you think his matchup is going to work out for him. That's the only reason I am saying right now pick up Baker Mayfield. You could see the difference in what he could do compared to Tyrod Taylor and how he could get that offense jump-started. He is going to be a good thing for David Njoku. He's going to be a good thing for Carlos Hyde, and he's going to be a good thing for Jarvis Landry.
Be a great thing for Jarvis Landry.
So those are my two quarterbacks. All right, let's move on to the running backs. Who do you have at running back?
So to start for me at running back, Buck Allen, currently owned in 39.9% of leagues. Now, if you listen to last week's show or some of last week's show, you heard me say that you could only start Buck Allen, or you wouldn't even start Buck Allen, or I wouldn't want to start Buck Allen if Alex Collins missed the start. He would be borderline startable, like flex option at best. Now, I wasn't completely wrong because Allen still only got 26 yards, but he got 2 touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns on the season. Buck Allen is getting some goal line work in what is surprisingly more of a committee than we gave credit to at the beginning of the season. You admittedly had Alex Collins as one of your boom players or one of your my guys at the beginning of the season. You even had a bold prediction about him. Now, Buck Allen is still very touchdown dependent, but he is proving flexible in deeper leagues and also would be a solid handcuff should something happen to Collins, who at times had limped back to the huddle this last week. So Buck Allen is a serviceable guy to have on your bench to be that flex play, depending on matchup, as buys come in, but also be a handcuff. So sometimes a handcuff is just a guy who sits on the bench and doesn't do anything. That's the wrong kind of handcuff you want. You want a handcuff like an Austin Eckler, or kind of the Royce Freeman or Lindsey, whichever camp you're in on who the starter and who the handcuff is there. But that's the type of handcuff you want. So I like Buck Allen as a grab this week.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Again, if you're in a standard league, leave Buck Allen alone.
Yes.
It's not going to work out for you. We play PPR leagues. That's how that's kind of the whole basis of how we go about all of our decisions and everything is full point PPR. That's where Allen is going to have his most value. I mean, you look at 16 rush attempts so far in the year for 32 yards. He's averaging 2 yards a carry, but they're giving him the ball in the red zone.
Yep.
So he's somewhat touchdown dependent for standard. Outside of that, he does catch the ball, so he does show value there. So who else you
got? The other one I have is Jordan Wilkins, and this is more deeper leagues. So this is a deeper waiver wire ad. Wilkins has not jumped off the page in the absence of Marlon Mack's injury. He hasn't really been a clear-cut waiver wire ad to the first 3 weeks. I think in a deeper league of a 14-plus or maybe a 12-plus, depending on injuries and how deep your roster is, he's getting a steady amount of work in that he's got 30 carries, 120 yards. That's the 4 yards per carry you're looking for. He does only have 7 catches for 25 yards. So it's not the flashiest of picks, but when you look at what is available on waivers in that 50% and below ownership, Wilkins is somebody that I like his workload currently. If Marlon Mack is continued to be held out, he'll still be there. I like him over Naheem Hines personally. He's getting consistent enough work to make him comfortable to stash on your bench as a player to add if you need more running back depth.
Yeah, the only other person that I would add as a possibility would be Duke Johnson. Now, I know that everyone's saying, well, he hasn't done hardly anything this year. Well, that was because those were in games where they were using Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback. Duke Johnson, the last 3 years, has led all running backs in receptions.
Yes.
And so I think that this year, now that they've brought in Baker Mayfield, he is another one that is going to benefit from that. Jarvis Landry runs most of his stuff from the slot. Duke Johnson they use a lot from the slot, but he's also a passing down back. He's going to catch more balls than Hyde is. So I think that makes him more of a bye-week flex play that is very viable.
Yes,
if you need it.
Yeah, and it has been a more or less a tragedy, to use that word again, his usage so far this season. I mean, Hugh Jackson has been his coach the last couple of years, and no, it's not like with a Chris Ivory who goes to a new team and they're not sure really how to use him, or David Johnson with a new offensive coordinator and they obviously don't know how to use him. This is something to where they know his talents. I think they were trying to run some different types of schemes with Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback. Now that they have more of that pocket type style passer who's really electrifying. Once again, there's a noticeable difference with Baker Mayfield at quarterback from his team. Yep. Guys want to play hard for him. So I think Duke Johnson, once again, I talked about Duke Johnson being droppable if he didn't get 5 points. He didn't get 5 points in PPR. But the caveat now, the change is Baker Mayfield, new quarterback, new opportunities. Give it another week, maybe 2, depending on your depth. I would still like to have Duke Johnson over Jordan Wilkins. I may, depending on if I have Alex Collins, I would probably take Buck Allen, but I'd probably want Duke Johnson over a Buck Allen because I think the workload's there more in a PPR league.
Correct. All right, let's move on to wide receivers.
Let me go over one running back here really quick. I have an avoid. Don't follow the trap that is the 1 week great game of a running back. The running back I'm talking about is Chris Ivory. Yes, he played Minnesota. Yes, LaShawn McCoy is likely to be out another week. But if you take away the one play, the one explosive play that Ivory had, which he should have gotten in the end zone, period, if you ask me, on that play, the 55-yard catch, you take that away, he only scores 10 points. He scored 10 points the week before against the Chargers, Minnesota. Green Bay, as long as Green Bay is not playing in a sloppy mud pit like they were in Washington, and Adrian Peterson went off on him, I just don't see Chris Ivory. There's a reason why Chris Ivory is owned in 5.1% of leagues. This is not a guy that you're looking to grab. A one-game start against Green Bay does not make me comfortable enough to grab him. That was his one explosive play, and it was only an explosive play because no one was around him. It was a massively missed coverage. Avoid Chris Ivory.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to move on to wide receivers. Justin, why don't you go ahead and start off with your number one?
Calvin Ridley. This is like a no-brainer at this point. It's obvious Calvin Ridley has outscored Julio Jones over the last 2 weeks. He didn't get a single catch in week 1. I think that was rookie rust or whatever, but he has knocked all of that off now. I don't think it continues for him to outscore Julio like this because Julio is Julio Jones. But what I find disturbing for Julio Jones owners is that Calvin Ridley is getting more red zone targets.
Yeah.
That's what terrifies me, especially considering that Ridley now has as many touchdowns as Julio Jones has had in his last 24 games, and Ridley's only played 3 and only had points in 2.
Yep.
So, look, Matt Ryan, we talked about this with the injuries. Matt Ryan is more or less being forced to throw the ball all over the field due to the injuries on defense and the injuries to Freeman. The high-scoring offense should continue against Cincinnati, followed by the game against Pittsburgh. So you have 2 very, very good games. There's no reason to think that although he may not score 3 touchdowns again, there's no reason to think that he can't get in the end zone once or twice again over the next 2 games.
Okay. All righty. Yeah, I like Ridley. I hate the fact that someone picked him up this week just to start him against me, and he goes off for 50 points. Okay, so now we're going to get to the guy that I've already been talking about. Chris Godwin. He is the number three receiver in this Tampa Bay offense. Number 3.
I think he's the number 2.
I think tonight he kind of moved into that number 2 role, finishing the game with 10 targets. Now, he starts off the game with 2 drops and a fumble in the first half. Finishes the game with 5 catches, 74 yards, and has scored his 3rd touchdown. He has a touchdown in every single game so far this year with a minimum of 41 yards.
Yep.
This is a guy that is benefiting from this offense. And while he showed to be very productive last year with Jameis Winston throwing the ball, he is very much benefiting from the gunslinger FitzMagic.
Yes.
And that is going to continue. He will take over Deshaun Jackson completely this season. Jackson's had a couple of great games, but Chris Godwin is the number 2 there.
Yeah, the thing with Jackson is he is almost like this year's Tyreek Hill in the fact that he is boom or bust.
Yeah.
His catch percentage was 100% coming into this game. Caught the ball 3 times on 5 targets, only 37 yards, so he was more or less contained in this game while everyone else was allowed to run free, as Godwin had a 20-yard catch, Evans had a 51-yard catch, Howard had a 21-yard catch, Brate had a 21-yard catch. So everyone else is getting more yardage. Godwin also dropped one in the end zone.
Yeah, he dropped a touchdown pass.
He could have easily been the highest scoring receiver in the Monday night game.
Well, he dropped one in the end zone, and then he had another one that he supposedly dropped. It was a touchdown that was reversed. The calling was reversed on it.
It was reversed because he was ruled down by contact.
Okay, so there's that one. He could have had
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he is a talent. We've been talking about him for 2 years now. Ever since he was coming into the draft out of Penn State. So this is a guy that we've been high on for a couple of years. So this is definitely a guy to look at.
Yes.
Justin, who else do you have?
I hope I don't talk about this guy next week. Mike Williams, his ownership in fantasy football leagues is quite depressing that it's still only 33%. For those of you who listen,
but hey, that's on ESPN. The Yahoo owners are a little smarter, and he's owning about 60% of leagues.
I don't doubt that because Yahoo is my platform of preference. Personally, I like what Yahoo does. But 33% of leagues, Williams' ownership is bad. Just mentioned that we talked about him before the season started as him being the big body receiver in the offense. Okay, great. Antonio Gates came back. But who got 2 touchdowns this week? Mike Williams. He had a 2-score game. Maybe that'll get somebody's attention. Maybe someone will finally, quote-unquote, chase points on Mike Williams. But the schedule gets light over the next couple of weeks with the 49ers, now without Garoppolo and without Sherman for the next couple of weeks, and then Oakland. So those are the next 2 weeks. Look for Mike Williams and the rest of the Chargers offense and those Keenan Allen owners to have good weeks over the next couple of weeks. Look for Mike Williams to find the end zone. I would put over-under for the next 2 weeks at 1.25 on him getting into the end zone. So he's going to get 1. I firmly believe that, but probably has a good shot of potentially getting 2 over the next 2 weeks.
Alrighty. The other person that I have. Whoops. Stop that. The other person that I'm looking at is coming down here is Tyler Boyd. Believe it or not, I'm actually suggesting yes, you get him because in the last 2 games, one with A.J. Green in the lineup and the other one when A.J. Green comes out because of an injury, he has, over the last 2 games, 12 catches for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 targets. He's shown up. He's proven that he can get the job done this year. I am very not, I guess, surprised is the best way to put it. And again, like I was talking about with Dalton, he is coming into a game against Atlanta where the middle linebacker and the 2 starting safeties are gone. Now they still have their corners, but the fact that they're missing safeties, some of those deep balls are going to be a little bit easier for him and for A.J. Green. And if A.J. Green can't go, Dalton's going to be looking Tyler Boyd's way all day.
Yes.
So he's definitely a guy that I would suggest to pick up this week.
Yeah, I got one more, but I'm going to be very brief on it. John Brown, currently owned in 47.9% of leagues. He's had consistent numbers through the first 3 weeks. He's going up against the Steelers, who, once again, like we've mentioned, are giving up a massive amount of points. Now, that could be next week could be a classic or AFC North, defensive battle, like what you see. Those normally happen later in the season when we get to like November, December. But clearly, John Brown and Joe Flacco have chemistry and are doing good things. I like all of the other guys we've mentioned better. I like Ridley. I like Boyd. I like Godwin. I like Williams better. But if all of those guys are taken because those are going to be guys that people are going to rush to, then you're going to be okay with settling for John Brown.
Yeah. I'd agree with you there. All right, so yeah, we'll keep that short. Tight ends. Who's your number one tight end?
Vance McDonald. And for those of you who have listened, I talked about this guy in week 1, also as my caution on Jesse James. Yes, Jesse James splashed the first couple of weeks. But what did Jesse James do tonight exactly? 1 catch.
I think that's what it was. Let me.
Not a whole lot. And so Jesse James, 1 catch for 7 yards. Vance McDonald, 5 targets, 4 catches, absolute demolishing of Conte. Wikipedia had a very, very interesting informational bit about Conte that has now been changed. Apparently, Conte
was murdered tonight by Vance McDonald.
By Vance McDonald in Tampa Bay. That stiff arm was just sick. But even after that 75-yard touchdown, McDonald was used more. Now, we've talked about this a little bit back and forth in that Pittsburgh is not really known for tons of tight end usage. But in the right scenario, and if you want to own a Steelers tight end, Vance McDonald is the one to own. Vance McDonald had that great playoff game last year of 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Vance McDonald is clearly the tight end to own in Pittsburgh. This is an offense that's going to have to score, much like Kansas City. Bleeding points, must score. If you are a Atlanta Falcons fantasy player owner, Steelers, Kansas City, you're excited because their defense is god-awful, and you're going to have to score points. So this is one where I would own McDonald after Roethlisberger, Connor, Schuster, and Brown. He would be the next guy up that I would grab.
Okay. Really, in terms of the tight end situation, there's not a whole lot out there.
Really.
Oh shoot!
Which is why I like Vance McDonald, who's currently owned. I forgot to mention only in 12.9% of ESPN leagues.
Yeah, let me pull this up one more time. There we go. Own percentage. All right. The thing about this week, looking at less than 50%. Ben Watson is really the only other guy that I'm looking at as a solid possibility. Maybe Ricky Seals-Jones. However, with how the Seattle defense has been playing the last couple of weeks, their defense is getting better. And Michael Kendricks is proving to be very, very good in that defense.
Yes.
And he's one of those guys that can move out and cover tight ends. Bradley McDougald is moving out to cover tight ends. So Seals-Jones is not a guy that I would pick for this week. But Ben Watson, it doesn't have what he's solid in this offense. Going up against the New York Giants, their defense has kind of been back and forth. It's a productive offense. He, 5 receptions for 71 yards, 4 for 44, 3 for 19. He's not going to put up a ton of points. He may get into the end zone, but he's not going to kill you. He's most likely not going to put up a 0 because of how much this team, needs to put up points with how bad their defense is playing.
Yeah.
So that's the only other guy that I have. Did you have anyone else for tight end?
Not really. Most of the tight end position is very touchdown dependent. So it's one of those things where for those of you who are, say, a Trey Burton owner, I feel your frustration and pain. a Will Dissly owner, maybe a 1 week drop off. I still think he has value. Maybe not startable. If you want to run with 2 tight ends, go for it. I still think Dissly has a tremendous amount of value there.
He'll be fine next week because I'm going to drop him this week.
Yeah, and I'm not going to rank him in my top 10, so he'll be fine. But, yeah, tight ends are such kind of a crapshoot. I understand the value of trying to get a Gronkowski, Kelsey, Ertz, one of those top 5 elite guys. But after that, there's not much to do on waivers unless you think Ebron, who may or may not be owned in 50% of leagues. He's currently on a 55.3 of ESPN. Ebron could be an option if Doyle continues to sit out.
Alrighty. Do you got anything else for us tonight, Justin?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, that's all I've got for you. We will be back tomorrow night. I believe it's a solo show with me.
Should be.
All right. So tomorrow night, solo show. I will be making the announcement about who won the drawing for the signed Tevin Coleman jersey and the signed T.Y. Hilton photo. And we'll make sure to get those sent out as soon as possible to you guys. We want to thank you again for taking the time to listen to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Justin.
And we will talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.